Lincoln County Courthouse. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
All right, thank you, everybody. This meeting of the Lincoln County Planning Commission will begin with a few remarks. The meeting is being streamed live, and when adjourned and posted, it will be available at any time at lincolncountysd.gov. The order of events tonight will be as follows. For each public hearing, staff will introduce the agenda item and present a summary of the staff findings. The applicant will then be asked to explain their proposal in further detail and to answer any questions from the County Planning Commission. I will then open the floor to public comment, first for persons in support of the application, and then for persons in opposition of the application. When you step up to the podium, please state your name, address, and speak clearly into the microphone. Please limit your comments for less than 5 minutes. Lastly, decisions on change of zones will be scheduled for additional public hearing during upcoming Board of Commissioners meeting. The decisions on conditional use permit applications may be appealed to the Board of Commissioners by submitting a letter to the County Planning and Zoning Office within 5 days. Thank you for your cooperation. All right, we do have a quorum, so we are good to go with our meeting tonight. We will now approve the meeting minutes. Are there any changes or any corrections to meeting minutes from last meeting? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion.
So moved. Green.
Second, Sweeter.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? All right, thank you. Next, we will move to the meeting agenda. Are there any changes to make to the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to remove the new business number 2 because of the way it was put on the agenda. It was very confusing to the public, and I know that when people saw that this is not a noticed public hearing, many of them that wanted to testify left and went to Pier to testify for bills tomorrow.
Okay.
So I would like to just move it to next month.
All right, postpone it for 1 month.
Yes.
All right, we need to take a motion on that, correct, Toby?
I just vote on that with the agenda motion.
Okay, yes, all right. So your motion is to remove number 2 from the agenda.
Correct. Until next month.
All right, is there a second for that motion?
I guess I'm confused if it's not a motion, if it's not a noticed public hearing, can we, is the public expecting to talk?
Well, I would say the people that are here tonight were expecting to talk on that, but it might have been posted a little confused, so not everyone that showed up that could have. But if we do remove it from the agenda, we come to public comment
For non-agenda items?
for non-agenda items, then we could speak on that, so everyone here could speak still.
So we remove number 2, we leave number 1, but are we taking public comment on number 1?
Yeah, that's new business, so we don't really, there's really no public comment on
Okay.
new business.
So there wouldn't be public comment on any, so what would we be talking about anyway? We wouldn't be voting on anything, would we?
Well, the
Would it-
electional officers, you would.
No, on this number 2. Basically, it's the solar energy stuff, right? Is that?
The
Well,
solar
building-
and the,
and building
and the
transfers.
building eligibility.
So if we're not taking public comment and we're not voting on anything, what will be different next month?
The way it's put on the agenda.
But I'm saying people, will they have the opportunity to speak next month?
I believe they would. Mr. Brown, could you help us with that? Excuse me.
I'm just wondering what's gonna be different.
Right, that was my confusion.
So the the agenda item, so last month we had a work session, and the board decided that they wanted public comment on it. So on the briefing item, we said, well, yes, tonight the intention was public comment, but it's not a notice public hearing. So we didn't put a notification in the papering like that. And we typically don't, so there's a difference between public comment and notice public hearing, which this one's not a notice public hearing.
So basically, the purpose of tonight was to take public input.
Correct.
Before we drafted anything.
Correct.
Okay.
And then what we draft will
Be based on
send up to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
So, yeah.
So we don't have anything drafted.
Right.
Yeah,
So next
perfect.
month, we won't change anything. It'll
So
stay
next
the same
month,
way it is.
what Commissioner Otten is saying is that potentially there would be more people here to give input to make a better draft. That makes sense to me.
Yep.
So you did have a draft. There's two drafts on the agenda. Yeah, we were just taking we had two work sessions which you didn't take public comment on. You wish to take public comment before you voted on sending it up to the Board of Commissioners. But at such time as,
But we wouldn't vote on either one of these, the drafts.
so the vote is to send it up to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners will take public comment to decide if they want to remand it back to the Planning Commission, who would then have a required public hearing, a notice public hearing. Send it back to the Board of Commissioners, who would also have a notice public hearing. So,
Can we just have it as a notice public hearing before we vote on it?
so the only difference is that we haven't submitted it to the Board of Commissioners. We're doing it kind of backwards than we typically do it. The Board of Commissioners typically remand it to us and then we work on it. But like the pipelines, we didn't, we took public comment on it as opposed to doing a notice public hearing.
So we'll take comment on it and add that to our draft. And then we'll remand that to the Board of Commissioners after comment next month.
You'll
correct?
send for review, because you can't tell them what to
Right,
do.
we'll send
Yeah,
it,
you
yes.
can, yeah, you can.
They'll look at
You
it.
can send it to them and then they can automatically decide to do nothing with it and never send it back to us, or they could send it back to us to do an actual public hearing on it.
Well,
So it's
does it just make more sense to start there?
Just to do what?
To start at the commissioners?
Well, we wanted to give them some kind of direction or a working draft is what we wanted to do. So we could send it up there, yeah.
Seems like it's an extra step maybe, but whatever.
Potentially, yeah.
I guess what I want, or what I would want, is I'd want as much public input as possible before we make any decision, and have everybody have as much opportunity to speak as they want.
I guess that's kind of my question. So is there any harm in taking the public comment tonight from those that are here?
And not voting.
Especially if we're gonna open it up for them to potentially speak during non-agenda items anyway, and then still do the same thing again next month. We can have two public comment sections, can't we, or listening sessions,
Well, the intent tonight was to take public comment. We were just,
and send it up.
we're pointing out that it wasn't a notice public hearing. So unless somebody knew about tonight, they're not going to get any notice in the paper or anything like that, so, yeah. So there's a difference between public comment and a public hearing.
So everyone here is the ones that watch YouTube?
So what if, what if we left it on, took public comment, we discussed and also did that next month?
It's up to the board, yeah, whatever you want to
Well,
do.
that's what I'm wondering.
Either way, they can comment on it, because if you remove it from the agenda, they can speak during public input on non-agenda
Yeah,
items.
but-
Yeah.
Both of them are topics that it surely isn't gonna hurt to have more than one, discussion about, I guess, as long as,
And I guess if all
I
we're
mean, there's
doing,
folks here that probably came here to talk about this, and so,
and if all we're doing is sending it up to the Board of Commissioners, and then it's gonna come back, I guess I don't understand why we wouldn't take comment, so we can at least start the process to get up to the Board of Commissioners.
And you can still do that.
And then you guys would still remand it back, I would assume, but at least then we take comments from those that took the time to come here tonight, but.
Which they still can do if we just move this till next month. Where the people that thought that they couldn't speak tonight went to Pier so that they could speak on bills tomorrow morning, rather than having to drive up in the morning.
but I think there's a path where we could do both, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We could let people talk tonight, and we could let people talk next month.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
We're
I
not
guess
in a
that's-
hurry to rush anything through.
That's more
We
so
want
what I would be in
Hear as
favor
much as we can.
Yeah. So Toby, how would that look? If we
Comment
wanted to
tonight,
do
then-
it, if we wanted to do it tonight and next month? How would that work in the technicalities of your office?
No technicalities. The difference would be is if it's public input, you guys aren't going to engage and you're not going to discuss it amongst yourself. Leaving it on the agenda would allow you to discuss it and take a look at it with the public. That's the two difference in my mind.
No, yeah, if we just left it
Well, as far
as,
as formality, yeah, I mean, we'll
I
do
mean, if we
the
left it
next-
as is tonight,
Yeah.
but we also planned on doing it again next month.
Yeah, you just motion to continue it next month,
Okay.
if that's what you want. Yeah, it's up to you. Either way works.
At the
yeah.
time of discussion,
Yeah.
we make a motion to extend it to next month.
Sure, that's an option. Or you just remove it from the agenda too. That's the option too, so. Or you just remove it as the motion is before you.
Yeah, but then we don't have a period tonight
Correct.
where we get to engage and talk about it.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so where we're at now, we have a motion to remove item number 2. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
All right. So let's add some more discussion then.
So we don't, if we leave it as is that, then we just don't vote on it tonight and do it again, right? Is that
We
what it
take up
is?
public comment tonight and tomorrow night.
All right.
Or next month, and then we use all that input to help put together that
Put
draft
together and vote on it.
before we send it to the commission for their consideration.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I guess that's what I would be in favor of, and I want to thank Commissioner Otten for bringing it up, because I guess I was confused about it as well. But I do think that the right thing to do would be, for the people that are here tonight that want to talk, I think we should give them the opportunity.
100%.
And not waste their time. And then for folks that that aren't here that want the opportunity, I think we should give them the opportunity next month. So I would be in favor of doing it
Both times.
both times.
So to do that.
So to do
you
that,
no
would
vote,
have
right?
to vote no
Vote
against
no.
Commissioner
No
Otten's motion.
against
Yes.
And,
And then-
and handle it at the time,
Time.
Yep.
I believe.
So then we'd have to go through and just vote no on this one and then approve the agenda as is.
Right.
Correct.
All right.
And then at the time of this discussion, we'll make a motion to extend the discussion to next month.
So can I remove my motion?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yes, I don't see why not, sure.
Okay. Well, I'll just remove that as long as we're going to do it again next month, so that the people that were confused by this have the opportunity to come and speak as well. And then we can have you guys talk about it amongst yourselves as long as it's on the agenda.
All right.
So I'll just remove my motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as originally published.
Second, Scott.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Commissioner Sweeter,
Yes.
Commissioner Boots,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Otten,
Abstain.
Commissioner Jungley is also a yes. All right, agenda is approved as written. All right, now we open the floor to public input on agenda items or items that are not on the agenda. So, now this is still on the agenda, the eligibilities and the solar we're going to talk about later. So anything else you guys would like to speak on? Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public input, and we will go to our first conditional use permit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Toby Brown, representing County Planning and Zoning Department. This first item before you this evening is a conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales. The applicant in this application is NB Golf Cars. Subject property is located I'd say just to the east of the airport property. It's just within the City of T's growth area. Subject property is developed with a 9,600 square foot building on the property. The site is 1.27 acres in size. Subject property is zoned C commercial, as is adjacent properties. To the south is zoned I1, light industrial. That's I call a contractor shop. It's Weller Brothers. And then the properties adjoining or adjacent to them are like uses, warehousing type, some sales on the property. The one looking to the south would be looking onto the property. That's an access easement that provides access to the property. And then the driveway and main entrance would be located directly off of that access easement there. So this is a site plan that was submitted. So the original application was approved for the construction of the building was 9,600 square feet for retail sales. So the applicant currently utilizes property for sale of golf carts on the property. So the applicant reached out to the department and notified us that the state of South Dakota requires a dealer's license for a particular line of golf cars that they're selling on the property. And so because of that requirement, these vehicles have a title. Because of that, they do require the dealer's license with South Dakota. So of course, they do have to get the motor vehicle sales conditional use permit from the county prior to us signing off on their state requirement for the motor vehicle sales on the property. So staff did receive the application, has had discussions with the applicant, and really identified that this property, again, currently being utilized for sale of motor vehicles on the property. Don't feel that this is anything intensive, really used to it. Our discussions with the applicant, that was probably approximately 2 vehicles a year. But I think they can go a little bit more detail about how many they intend to sell on the property. But really identified that because of this change that we wanted to really kind of put some conditions on this application to make sure that that we're not looking at this from a true kind of what I'll call motor vehicle sales property. We're looking at this as basically just to allow them to sell the low-speed vehicles. So again, you're aware that in Lincoln County, when we do approve these types of applications, that typically it's 2 or 3 down the road that we continue to get additional businesses that would take over the property. So we want to make sure that we locked in this particular property with it, as well as some of you are aware that we do have a relationship with the City of T. They approve all site plans for the properties that are within their growth area. And so the City of T did approve this previous site plan for the original building and for the original golf cart sales on the property, but really wanted to take a more thorough look that if it ever changes to a more intensive type use or changes any type of use that's going on in the building, that we wanted to make sure that that we reviewed those things. So again, from an analysis standpoint, staff does feel that this application is consistent with surrounding land uses, not out of character what's going on in there currently on the property. The intensity of it shouldn't be really a negative impacts to surrounding properties. So staff does recommend approval of this application with the 6 conditions that were listed in the staff analysis. As of this public hearing, staff did post the property. The applicant did send written notification of the public hearing out to adjoining properties. Staff has received no calls or comments regarding this application up to this point. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you. Again, staff does recommend approval with the 6 conditions listed in the staff analysis.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Good explanation. All right, Commissioner, any questions for staff?
I want, Mr. Chair. Very thorough, but I still have questions too.
Sure.
So for the initial building, that's under conditional use permit?
Nope, that's a permitted use because it was under 10,000 square feet.
Okay, so this wouldn't be an additional conditional use permit on top of that or anything? So say there was a conditional use permit out there, just to, educate myself. Does one supersede the other? Can you have multiple on one property? How does that work in Lincoln County?
Yeah, I mean, unless they would conflict, we take a look at the the existing conditional use permit, if it's a different type of land use, like the previous application in the joint, there was a contractor shop and that was motor vehicle sales. If there was another motor vehicle sales on this property, more than likely they wouldn't need one tonight because we would just fit under that one. But if there's any conflict with what the conditions are, but since this was it's a permitted special use that currently exists there now. So there is no conditional use permit on that property currently.
Thank you, Toby.
All right, Commissioners, any other questions?
Okay, the applicant is in attendance this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yep.
I will ask the applicant to come forward and tell us about their application.
Good evening. My name is also Toby Birch. I'm the general manager of NB Golf Cars. And Toby did a great job of explaining exactly what we're looking for. Just trying to be compliant so we can sell a few LSV golf cars every year. It's pretty low volume. That's what we're kind of looking for, if anybody's got any questions.
All right, thank you. Just try and get into compliance.
Yep.
All right, Commissioners, any questions?
I do have one.
Oh, yes, Mr. Boots.
What's the difference between a regular golf cart and a low-speed golf cart? Is it be able licensed on the street or?
Yeah, so the LSV comes with a title. So it's kind of titled like an automobile, whereas a golf car is just a golf car. We collect sales tax on it. If you were looking at both of them, you really can't tell the difference. It's just how it's titled. So, yep.
Yeah, just a question because they're all low speed, so.
Right, yeah.
All right, thank you, Toby. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, I'll ask anybody in favor of the application, please come forward and speak. Seeing none, I'll ask anybody in opposition of the application. Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public input, and I will ask for a motion from the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve with the 6 conditional uses.
Second, Green?
Green is second. All right, motion second. Any discussion?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yep, I appreciate him coming forward and do what we need to do to make sure we're all in compliance, so, yeah. All right, with that, I will do roll call. Commissioner Sweeter,
Yes.
Commissioner Boots,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Otten.
As the Lincoln County Commission representative, I will be abstaining, but I have no conflicts of interest.
All right, and I am also a yes. Thank you, coming forward, congratulations. All right, with that, we'll move on to old business. Any old business, Mr. Brown?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, we have some new business. Election on Planning Commission officers for 2026.
Since this is the meeting in February, it's time to elect the annual officers for the Planning Commission. Tonight, you will elect a chair, a vice chair, and then the 2 alternates. So per the bylaws, there is no term limit on the chairperson. In 2025, chairperson was Commissioner Jongling, vice chairman was Commissioner Scott, and the alternates were Monty DeRusso and Colin Enstead. I've reached out to both alternates, and again, typically when you reach the term limit, then you become an alternate. So Monty and Colin are 2 alternates currently. Did reach out to them, and they would desire to continue to serve if they're so appointed with that. But would ask that you would just take separate votes on the chair, the vice chair, and the alternates. So, okay?
3 votes with the alternates also?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, well, let's start with the chair. I will take motions for the chair position.
Mr. Chair, I move to elect you as our continuing chair.
Second?
All right, thank you. Any other nominations?
I
Seeing
vote
none?
nomination cease.
What was that, Commissioner?
I vote nomination cease.
All right, with that, we have motion, where'd my paper go? All right, well, we'll take roll call. Commissioner Sweeter,
Yes.
Commissioner Boots,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Otten?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate that. I think we've been doing some great things up here, and hopefully I help and do some more. All right, nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to make the motion for Mr. Eric Scott to continue as vice chair.
Second, Boots.
All right, are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we will do roll call. Commissioner Sweeter,
Yes.
Commissioner Boots,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Sure. As long as you promise to be at all the meetings.
I'll be in all the meetings where I show up.
Yeah. Except when you're on vacation.
We got Commissioner Otten,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jungley is also a yes. All right, we have our chair and vice chair. Thank you guys very much. Now we'll do our alternates of Colin and Monty. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion. Boots.
I'll second Sweeter.
All right, any other nominations? No, I'll do roll call. Commissioner Sweeter,
Yes.
Commissioner Boots,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Otten,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jungley is also a yes. All right, we keep it the same as we had it last year.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I have one question.
Yes.
Since we're talking about alternates and spots.
Yeah.
So we're down a spot, right?
I'm sorry.
We're down one person.
We are
have
down
for
one
quite
planning
some time.
commissioner.
Is it possible to have one of the alternates just fill that spot until it is filled, or?
As an alternate, yeah, they can come anytime. Anytime there's an opening.
I don't know. I just wonder if that isn't something we should discuss a little bit, just.
Yeah, no, the more commissioners we have that one open spot, and we get an alternate to fill that spot until that spot is appointed.
Mm-hmm.
More the better.
Yeah. Okay, I was just curious if that was a possibility. Thanks.
Yep. All right, with that, we'll move to new business item number 2. So, to recap, so last week we had a working session, or last month, apologize, we had a working session, and we had a rough draft, and we talked through up here, taking no public input, just kind of our thoughts back and forth. Toby went back and made those changes, and now we decided to have another discussion tonight and talk through it and have public input, and then we could make some more changes with that public input.
So before you was the two drafts, or for the solar and for the building eligibility transfer. So there's two separate ones on the building eligibility transfer. So it's a conditional use in the A1 agricultural district and the RC rec conservation district. That's why 154-058Z is in the A1 agricultural district, and 154-178P is in the RC rec conservation district. And so, again, what this proposal would do would be to take away the requirements that it be contiguous under the same ownership, and then the suitability factors. And then one other thing that kind of came up was there was concern from some of the citizens about number 2, or it would be the minimum lot size should be 1 acre, but a larger area may be required when soil conditions warrant. They didn't want the requirement that the board could increase that acreage requirement. So from a staffing perspective, we don't really have any issue with that. It's really up to the board. And then a right to notice farm covenant would be placed on there. One other thing that we kind of, as we were looking at this as staff, is one of the things that kind of came up at the last meeting too was that concern about, I think a lot of the concern of the board was about multiple transfers. And so one of the thoughts you have is under Z, say the transfer of one building eligibility from one parcel to another parcel. That way we would know that they'd have a home. So if they submit a conditional use permit application, we'll know where it's going. Typically when we transfer multiple ones, like part of the discussion was last month, was sometimes we don't know where those are going to go on the parcel. So they transfer to a 60, We don't know if it's gonna be right next to somebody's house or where it's gonna be. But this requirement would be them to plat out at least an acre size, and then they move it from there to there. So as staff, we would say we would know where the home is, we know where it's going, with that. So that would just require a change on that top part where it says transfer of one building eligibility. Not to say they couldn't move multiple ones, it would just, we would take those up on conditional use permits, so that you have a little bit more discretion on it, so. Okay, that's really all that is for that part, so.
All right. So first, we will talk with the building eligibilities, we'll take a public comment, we'll talk amongst ourselves, see if we want to make any changes to the draft, whatnot, and then we'll go on to the solar one and do that also following that. Everyone good with that? Yep. All right. Let's take public input on this item, and we'll have that 5-minute limit on speaking. If everyone's here for solar, let's make this first part go faster. Oh, please come forward. Remember to state your name and address for the,
Yep, Sarah Stever, 46850, 276th Street in Lenox. So every quarter section has 4 building eligibilities. Mine's more of a comment than a statement, or a question rather than a statement. So how many of those can you actually sell? All of them? And potentially could someone gather up, say, 25 building eligibilities and find a spot closer to Sioux Falls and do a housing development?
so, yes and no. So the way this is written, you have to move them to at least 1 acre. And then if it ends up being, is it more than 4? Toby, please clarify. Then it ends up being a different type of a zoning, so it's not, ends up being a planned development.
Subdivision ordinance.
Subdivision ordinance handles that, so that can't happen that way.
Okay,
Toby, is that correct? Okay.
That's why you're the chair.
That's a really good question, Sarah, and that was some discussion we've had on this whenever we talk about it. But there would become more requirements, because on the onset, it looks like it's a way to kind of backdoor a rural residential. But with having to abide by the subdivision ordinance, there's other things that would come along with that would put some handcuffs on it, and you'd have to go through that process as well. So, yeah.
And I think the other part of the way we have this drafted is the township can control the driveways too. So like in a mile, you can't have 14 driveways. You'd have to follow to whatever they say, 1 driveway, and they'd have to share it or whatnot.
so what is the maximum amount of eligibilities moving into a quarter? Or without it becoming a subdivision?
Toby, can you help us? Is that 4? More than 3. Okay.
Okay, very good.
But am I right on this, Toby, they have to be touching, correct? So you could have 4 houses in a quarter, as long as they aren't touching, they're not a part of the they don't have to abide by the subdivision.
Well, they would typically require though an easement, because the township's not gonna give them much driveway access.
No, but that's how you,
That's your guardrails, is your subdivision ordinance that prohibits a true subdivision.
but on a technicality, you could keep little strips of land in between each parcel, and then they wouldn't be considered subdivisions.
If they required an easement, they wouldn't then become, regardless of the 3 or 4. So it protects to make sure that you don't, the subdivision of the land is protected.
Mhm.
Thank you. And so of the land that's vacated, then the housing eligibilities to a degree kind of help govern where CAFOs end up, or maybe the size of CAFOs. with those removed, do CAFOs qualify as ag land use? I don't remember what its exact word, agricultural land?
Yeah,
Or does it
the-
literally remain as cropland?
Correct. If the eligibility is moved and moved somewhere else, the, where they came from stays the same as it was, would be ag land, yes.
But to answer on that, the setbacks for CAFOs are not from housing eligibilities, they're from existing
Structure.
dwellings. So
Okay.
just because you have a housing eligibility, you can't use that as a setback from a animal agriculture, livestock facility. You'd actually have to have a house on it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question on that?
Yep, thank you very much.
Clarification, good one. All right, anybody else for public input?
Good evening, Scott Montgomery, Fairview. This is about as clear as mud to me. I just ask that you give this consideration that we don't get ourselves painted at a corner we can't get out of. That's all I'm asking, thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening, Michael Poppins. I'll use our family farm address, 27330 468th Avenue, Lennox, South Dakota, as I'm mostly representing my family on this topic. First of all, I want to thank you all. It's good to see you all. I haven't seen you a lot of them in a while, but I'm glad to see all the faces here, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. First question I would have, kind of surprised to me when I heard about this, when I called the office about something else, was this was coming up on topic. I'm not quite aware of what the problem is that we're trying to solve by this change. As you all know, I've had my turmoil in trying to move eligibilities under the current situation. So on one hand, this would be very beneficial for the remaining 40-plus eligibilities that we have to move them around. And that would be a great thing for my family. On the side note, though, I think there's a lot of sand pits or quicksand that we're going to be getting into on this. As far as not touching, as I had researched that quite a bit, if they are not touching, it's not going to be qualified under, at least there's going to be a strong argument, it's not going to require the subdivision ordinance. So if there's existing driveways or something that can be utilized, same token, there's a lot of economic impact. Some will say that a building eligibility on the south end of the county has the same value as a building eligibility on the north end of the county. We have faced many, many times when the public has come to the commission, the planning and zoning, what's going to affect our property values. This absolutely, I have no doubt, would make an impact into valuations of those eligibilities. Some would be positive, some would be negative. Those on the north end, I think, are going to be negative. Those on the south are going to be positive. I think that has to be taken into consideration. And then the other part would be is, say someone has already purchased an eligibility, built their beautiful home, wherever it is that they've built, their expectation has been there's not going to be something next to them because those eligibilities have been used up. This is a significant change to that policy that we currently have. I'm not saying there aren't some hurdles, and I experienced them when we transferred 4 eligibilities to a different parcel. I honestly think that if I was on the commission, would say, let's stop moving eligibilities. That was the intent was, I don't believe the intent was ever to keep consolidating these and consolidating and consolidate them. It was intent to try to utilize maybe less valuable farmland on an adjacent property, place those eligibilities there so we could save more productive farmland. And there was a good theory to it, but there are hurdles even to that. So instead of even going a farther swing and making this completely eligible to move just about anywhere, as long as they have a 1-acre parcel and are willing to, if they commingle, do a subdivision blend, I think we need to step back and actually be more restrictive. If the intent, based on what I heard from the public when we moved our 4, was not to encourage more of this, but to come back and go back to just leaving them where they were. But thank you all, again, for all your service.
Thank you, Mr. Poppins. All right, anybody else with public comment? Freddie has some good points tonight.
Hi, everybody. Bethany Eric, 46747, 291st Street, Centerville, South Dakota. Wasn't planning on commenting on this, but this brought up a good point. And thank you for opening up 2 sessions, Betty. That was excellent, because there are a lot of people that wanted to be here and couldn't. Let's look at kind of the development of Lincoln County and how we're bringing in all of these big entities. There are adjacent properties to some of the larger entities, like our ethanol plants and all sorts of things, where it might not be desirable to build a house. So perhaps it should be considered that if there is something undesirable nearby, those eligibilities should be loose and available to sell. If a big giant, y'all know my situation where there's a large corporate entity, I doubt that the 4 eligibilities just south of that land is going to be developed into housing. Maybe we should allow our residents to get the value to serve their family farm by allowing them an appeal process to release those eligibilities from the land in the event that there's something that might be undesirable. Is that a logic? I think that might be logical. So we would give an out clause, basically, in that. So that's all. Thanks.
All right. Any additional public input? All right, Commissioner, we got some good points. Any thoughts on proposed draft changes or just conversation in general?
Yeah. Mr. Chair,
Sure.
so, and thanks, Mr. Poppins, for your comments. And just to, I don't know, to clarify or answer maybe what I thought was kind of a question, was when we visited about this last month, I don't think by any means that this draft that's in front of us tonight is one that anybody was just glaringly in support of. But what we thought is that if we're gonna have the conversation, let's just strip it down to the bare bones and start there. And then as we have discussions, we'll add and adjust. And you bring up great points, Bethany brings up great points. And, the one that I think Commissioner Green brought up last month and that's stuck with me, and as I visited with folks over the last month, is one, if we do this, it could be a generational decision, especially if we remove the land that adjoins each other and we can move them wherever we want to. One, I think that potentially could be a bookkeeping nightmare, but I think one of the impacts that it could long-term have is I think you could take eligibilities out of less populated townships, let's say, or less populated areas in the southern part of the county and move them, and then create these dead zones in our county that, 2-3 generations down the road, those folks, we would make a decision for those people and they would have no opportunity to grow or, live in those areas. And maybe just because they aren't populated today, I don't know that that's fair for us to make that decision for multiple generations. So that as I've thought on it more and talked to people, that's a fear of mine, and I don't think anybody, at least I don't have a great answer for that, and I don't know how comfortable I feel with it. The thing that with this whole transfer of eligibilities that over the past 2 to 3 years that has gotten what I'll call a gray area has been the fact that we've found a back door to transfer them between parcels that really aren't under the same ownership through the quitclaim process. And if we are gonna leave things the same, which I'm not saying I'm opposed to that, I do think that we need to either address that. And if we're gonna allow it, let's put it in there, or let's take it out and let's make it what it is. Because for whatever reason, for me, every time we do that, it just doesn't feel right. And it doesn't feel like it was the way it was supposed to be. So those are just a few comments I have, and I think, or I encourage the folks that are here, or anybody listening, that when we discuss this again next month, that more people show up, because I think it's a very important subject on a lot, you have the value of this that obviously could, in the short term, for sure, benefit some landowners in our lesser populated part of the county. But then you have the long-term effect of what that maybe could mean for future generations, that I think's a pretty important discussion to have, along with maybe the density. It doesn't create any more density, but it's surely a density transfer into a part of the, into a part of the county that I don't know if we are or we aren't prepared for that much density. So I think those are two really important things that I would encourage people that we could have more discussion on, so.
So then if a housing eligibility, say we open it up, it gets transferred within, so each city, say T. Harrisburg, has a 3-mile border around there where they control subdivision and all that, and building permits and all that. If they moved one within that 3 acres, would the city have control over that and make them put in city water, all those preparations on just another avenue?
Well, in there, they have the plat authority, right? That's, if someone were to move in there, that city's jurisdiction would be the platting authority of it.
Right,
is what that would
right.
be, yeah.
But they could still move the eligibility in there and build, that'd just be the platting authority and whatnot.
Yeah. The other interesting part of all this is, obviously all over the news, things about the property taxes in the state of South Dakota. Obviously this is about conditional use permits, but, some sort of relief for those in the southern part of the county, as somebody mentioned, every one of these would have, potentially the same dollar value, right? But if purely ag land is being valued because of things like this, I don't know that we on this board could impact that, but, some sort of relief when ag land is used solely for ag and somebody's not out there bartering their building eligibilities, but.
You are right. Someone last month said that. They said their property values are up because they have a housing eligibility on it. They asked if they just give it away. Just take it out. I just want my field and I don't want those taxes on it. There's a sweeter. How you doing over there?
You know my feelings, but,
Let's talk through it.
I think we just open up a lot by putting eligibilities there. I do. I mean, is it going to become a bartering system? I mean, if there's eligibilities down there, is it going to be, hey, you can have mine for money? Is money going to talk on eligibilities? It's going to depend on, and is it going to really take off? I mean, are there a lot of people, places that want eligibilities? I mean, yes, we've done, building eligibilities. Yes, we have. But sometimes it's kind of concerning. How are we going to sell them, per se? How is that going to work? Is it going to be just who you know? Or are you going to advertise them? Or what's that going to look like?
I personally think all those things you mentioned definitely could be a possibility, yeah.
I
Take it
mean,
off
so
an
I think if
eligibility.
we're saying, because we keep talking about we're going to take them from the southern end and move them to the northern end. Well, you know, we got to know who on the north end has land available for that 1 acre plot. And then we got to know who wants to get rid of their building eligibility. And what does that look like?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The people that have talked to me about this specific thing is because they want to bring their families back to where they started. And they have the land available, but they have no eligibility to bring their grandkids or their kids or whoever back to the family farm.
Another good point.
And sometimes that's deceiving.
Sometimes what?
Sometimes that's deceiving as well.
Well, except the people that we've talked with, or that I've talked with, I know them, and I know that they want to bring
Yeah.
their families back.
Yeah, and that is the case in some cases, yes.
This is a pretty big jump from trying to close a loophole to all of a sudden it's a free-for-all in the county, right? Like I do struggle with that, you know, much like Mr. Poppins said, it's, you know, I'm almost more of a fan of being restrictive than I am just opening it up, certainly. I don't know that I've specifically made my feelings on that known, but that's probably where I sit, you know, specifically related to that. Now, how do we shore up the initial issue of the quitclaim deeds and all of that and have good policy in place? It's tough to say. But I don't know that just opening it up for a free-for-all is the best way. But, you know, something, if we talk about, go back to contiguous, you know, you could continue to move things contiguously, but, yeah, I don't.
You know, like you're saying too, maybe we leave it, the parcels or properties have to be joining, but they don't have to have the same owner. That would eliminate the quick claim deed, and if, you know, we're neighbors, I sell to you, that's it, but it can't go across the road because that's not adjoining, or, you know, if it goes like 15 properties over, we have to approve that, and that usually doesn't work either, so that's another approach to this.
Commissioner Scott, how many months of these meetings would you have to come to move one of your building eligibilities to the north end of the county? Contiguously from land to land to land to land? We'd have a meeting every once a month with you,
Yeah,
you know?
I don't plan on selling any, so we don't have to worry about it.
But that would be, you know, if you talk around workarounds, like, you know, at that point in time, like, is somebody gonna go through the effort to try to move something that far? If we continue to have the guardrails of contiguous land, right, to be able to move things. Now, it may take somebody in Commissioner Otten's example, to find somebody that's willing to sell an eligibility and say it's a couple miles away. It may take a couple months for somebody to move a building eligibility to closer to the farmstead. But at least, you know, it puts some guardrails in there.
Yes.
Hi, Commissioner Booth.
You know, I have no problems with keeping some guardrails in there, and the quick claim would be nice to close that loophole. The one thing I see with taking everything, obviously, we've talked about south to north. You know, everybody wants to be north. You know, well, all of a sudden, if you end up all these little pockets on the north, as T and Harrisburg grow and Sioux Falls grows, then all of a sudden we're into that way of making that to be able to annexed into town and stuff, so I know there's some things that would be nice to clean up, and I appreciate everything that I've heard from the audience and everybody's ideas up here, so. And I hope we get to hear a little more next one, but, you know, I think we're all in agreement that something needs to be done, but we don't want to be just letting everything go and just drive up the price eligibilities too, so. I say, that's what I see as of a past city council member, that all of a sudden you've got all these eligibilities right outside of these towns, and then trying to absorb them into town, I think would cause some problems too, because we've all talked about, we would rather have the town grow out than us come to the edge of the town, so. Those are my thoughts.
All of a sudden, we put the burden kind of on the townships with saying, oh, now we're gonna manage this through driveway eligibilities, right? And like that's,
Well, the township would still have their own levers in place to approve driveways. But yeah, then we make them say no or yes, correct. So, Mr. Chair, I would, I guess does anybody have anything else to say on it? I'd just like to move that we continue discussion on this again next month.
Yep. No, we'll bring it back next month
With public comment.
with public comment, yeah.
Correct.
second.
All right. We don't vote or anything like that, do we, Toby? Just ask to put that on agenda for next month, yeah. Yeah, and like any project, I know we've all been part of them, we thought this is one way we go, this is the way the project's gonna be done. And you get halfway through and you learn and get educated, and you back up, and you take a different road. Doesn't mean we started one way, you have to keep going.
Well, the way my simple Norwegian brain works is that I like to start with something very simple and then we work from there. Because if we start with something too complicated, I can't get my head wrapped around it, so.
All right, any more discussion on this one, anyone? All right, let's move on to the next ordinance we're looking at review.
I just go.
Okay, the next possible ordinance, and again, not a public hearing, just public comment, take public comment on this, is, so you're aware that when we had an application for a non-accessory solar energy system, we ran that as a planned development district. Staff really feels that we need to have a particular specific breakout land use for non-accessory solar energy. So currently, accessory solar energy, like if someone wanted to utilize solar for their barn or for their CAFO, which we do have quite a few of those, that's just a permitted use. So it meets all setbacks of the typical building structures and things like that. But this would be for essentially non-accessory solar, would be none of the power that's generated on site stays on site. It would all go to the grid or go to some other area. Again, and I, as staff, would greatly appreciate this discussion that we're having. This is, I know that, especially with the building eligibility transfer, we always grapple with that when we have the application, but that's not the time to talk about policy. Did they meet all the requirements? Then we have to say yes, But it's great that we're having these policy discussions about it. So really, again, this is a rough draft, so staff just utilized primarily the plan development regulations that were put together for the application. And again, just kind of get some feedback from the public of kind of what they want to see with that. Again, this would be a conditional use that would be within the agricultural zoning district. So it wouldn't be a use allowable in any other district other than the A1 agricultural district. And then these would be the standards that would apply to it, minimum standards. So it would still require a public hearing. And at that public hearing, the board could add additional stipulations to it. It can also be, if approved or denied, can be appealed to the Board of Commissioners. So that's kind of the framework for what it is. So as far as the regulations, they're just kind of minimum standards. But again, I won't go through all those like I did last month, but those are just the basic standard conditions that are there. So with that, I guess I'll turn it back to you and ask if there's any questions of the board. Otherwise, we just open up for public comment.
All right, Commissioners, any questions for Toby on how this first draft is written before we?
I don't see, I'm looking at it here on my personal device. Does anywhere in there talk about the size, Toby, as far as like, I know we've discussed how many gigawatts or kilowatts or whatever. I guess I don't see it in here anywhere that specifies like how large we're allowing it to go?
Yeah, no, I mean, it would fall under the A1 agricultural district for lot size and for those different types of things, but there wouldn't be any limit. Originally, what we talked about at the first work session was if you wanted to make one a permitted special use, so you make a lower threshold and then bump it up for a conditional use permit. But it didn't seem like the board was interested in really doing that you would just treat them all the same. And again, jurisdiction of the state would be 100 megawatts. They would just take control of the land use part of it at that time, so.
So, yeah, any farm that's developing power, not for their own use. It would-
Yeah, so
it
if
would fall
it's
within this.
one panel, 200 panels, and I think, Commissioner John Link can get more into the nerd talk of megawatts and all that stuff, but.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, for some of you, yeah. But essentially, the manufacturer specifications could differ per panel. So for one, 50 megawatt, it could be 10 panels, another 50 megawatt could be 100 panels. So, it's really kind of, at this stage, you're just looking at what the land use of it is. How you want to treat that particular land use as far as what standards it has and how it's treated as the approval process. So again, in Lincoln County, we have permissive uses, which is by right. They can come into the department and get a building permit. You have permitted special uses, which as long as they meet the set standards, we can issue a building permit. If they don't, or they choose not to, they can bypass and go to a conditional use permit. And so a conditional use permit, automatic public hearing. So that automatically, any of that land use, regardless of size, has to have a public hearing and also has an appeal process to the Board of Commissioners. Again, rough draft, but the basis of it would be conditional use within the A1 agricultural district. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Yep.
All right. Let's have a discussion. Any public input?
Hi, everyone. Bethany, Centerville, South Dakota, 46747 291st Street. This was the topic that I really made a point to make it here tonight because I've done a lot of research. I love solar. I love the idea of it. It sounds amazing. But what I found when I was really researching it was that in practicality, what we're seeing nationwide is that there is a lot of lead contamination occurring in land after the solar panels have been built. In particular, Idaho, Frito-Lay will not allow the land ever to be farmed again because when the geese break the glass or the hail breaks the glass, it lands into the land and cannot be cleaned and reclaimed. And it can never be used for farming again because the glass, the metal, and then the lead from the plumbing underneath the solar panels is actually leaching into the food crop or the grazing. So we need to be I just wanted you guys to be aware of that there are some real drawbacks to the mega solar projects anyway, for sure, that you want to look up and be aware of as you're drafting this because it's critical of importance. Furthermore, when I looked at the setbacks, because I have a domestic well, that is all that feeds my farm. I depend on that well water. I want to make sure that our setbacks accommodate our water. If there is lead contamination that can occur from these conditional uses, let's put them further away from our municipal and domestic water services. So I would propose that in that areas that they were talking setbacks of 50 feet from the property line, et cetera, I would extend that to whatever we've got for CAFOs or beyond even. I would like them no closer than a mile from my well. I'd like to keep my water. So I think, and especially from our municipal water in our Lenox, Canton area, we really don't want them in an aquifer protection district. We don't want them in a floodplain. So those are two items I would ask that be added in that will, aquifer protection, water plane, and away from domestic and municipal water sources. Those are real critical. All of us need drinking water to exist. The other two things is the battery storage can be highly flammable. So we need to include battery storage in our setbacks. I don't want that next to my house. We need it's gonna store batteries, because basically the sun fills the batteries and then it goes into the grid as it's available with capacity. Those batteries can ignite. And the last one was the fact that when we're talking the sound pollution, in our northern climate, we don't have enough sun here. So if you talk to folks in Minnesota, Nebraska, they'll tell you that there's generators, diesel generators, that they're running at night to supplement the power to help boost their numbers for green energy dollars. So there's diesel generators. If you drive by a solar farm, a lot of times you'll hear a constant noise. So we need to also model after our CAFO ordinances where we're not exceeding 45 decibels at the property line. So lead, water, make sure we're protected, and sound pollution. When, there are a lot of the CAFO ordinances that we have in place as far as lighting, downlighting, and so on. Those are fantastic. Let's model after some of our existing, a wind tower, I think, is 45 decibels at property line. Let's give it the distance on the water we need. That makes sense. Anybody have any questions? Since I have done a lot of research, I'd be happy to answer anything, but if not,
Commissioners? Well, I think you presented well.
I'm glad to be of service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Stever, 46850, 276th Street in Lenox. First of all, I'm going to read a statement that Andrew Nielsen sent me. He couldn't be here tonight, and as you'll recall, he and his wife Cassie were just north of the proposed solar field. His address is 27643 465th Avenue in Lenox. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I support renewable energy development, but I ask the Commission to consider increasing the required setback for solar farms from 500 feet to 1,000 feet. Larger setback would better protect the views, property rights, and long-term enjoyment of neighboring landowners while still allowing responsible solar development to move forward. This additional buffer provides a more reasonable balance between private property rights and future industrial-scale projects. I respectfully urge the county to adopt the 1,000-foot setback standard from neighboring residents. Best regards, Andrew Nielsen. On my own testimony, I've been curious if there was anything other than anecdotal stories about what happens to property values when solar farms move in. So I found a study that Virginia Tech did. Back in June of 2025, they considered 8.8 million real estate sale transactions next to 3,699 solar farms, and they tracked them over a 15-year period. So a pretty robust study. They studied both residential real estate and ag land. They described that they were excited about what they figured out. So the impact to residential property they considered to be minor, meaning if you were within 3 miles of a utility scale solar farm, which is what we're talking about, your property values only dropped 4.8%. If you were within a half a mile, the drop in value is 7 to 8%. So if you're an acreage owner, and in our county, your land value or your property values are going up by maybe 6.5%, as it did in the rest of the county, to have yours drop by 14-point swing, kind of a big deal for an acreage owner. And it radiates out the further away, obviously, that you are from the solar farm. So on the ag side, it had the opposite effect. For whatever reason, I don't know. But the farms, agricultural land, saw an increase of 19.4% in value. My assumption is because they're willing to pay a higher per acreage price to put the solar farms are than someone who's just trying to do row crops. So that's almost a 20% swing in land value in ag, which is great unless you're a farmer trying to expand, a farmer trying to just bring his kids back to the farm, and now you're saddled with paying an extra a land price because they're putting pressure on the land values in your area. So it's just something that I want you to consider. And then finally, on things that I wish were in the ordinances would be prohibited uses, and I agree with everything that she said about those. Those were wonderful. Concentrated solar thermal devices, I think, is a really bad use of solar, and I think we should have that written in there that we're not going to use those. Those are the ones that reflect inward toward a centralized location. I'd like to see neighborhood verification requirements be about a 2 to 3 mile radius and a 30-day minimum notice. So letting people know that are actually in the radius that's impacted for their land values, so they can speak up. And I think the company should be paying for that notification. A glare study analysis, I guess that's a real part of having a solar farm next to you. More concentrated road maintenance agreements, although maybe you guys have got that some other place here that wouldn't need that, I'm not sure. And then the battery storage systems with the thermal runaway fires, that's a very big issue. We need our emergency management people trained on those. They've got to have the right equipment to extinguish them or actually just stay out of the way while they burn to the ground because you can't really stop them. So they're quite stunning to watch. So I'd like to see, I guess, a few more things added into it. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that.
Good evening again, Scott Montgomery, Fairview. We've been sold a bill of goods on this renewables. I'd encourage every one of you to watch a documentary called Planet of the Humans. And it digs deep into how filthy this so-called renewable is. It's a bigger carbon footprint than any coal, gas fired. Look at the problems we're having with the windmills around the country. I mean, if the blades break, what do you do with them? Bury them in the ground? I mean, it's something that I don't think we should jump into. My preference would be that we would make a moratorium until we get better informed on this thing. Because solar's filthy. I mean, it just is. I mean, at some point, those panels all have to be dealt with. They've only got about a 20-year life, and then what do you do with them? I mean, if you have a hailstorm, like was mentioned earlier, it drives all those rare earth elements into the ground. And what do you do with that? How does that get cleaned up? A lot of this has never been addressed, but I would strongly encourage you to watch that documentary, and I think you'll be shocked. Almost all this renewable energy is because the government is funding it. They're encouraging all this, and if it wasn't for the handouts, they wouldn't be doing this. I mean, Warren Buffett, he said he wouldn't put a single windmill up in Iowa if the government hadn't paid him to do it. So I think we need to really look at this renewables. I mean, Lincoln did a wonderful job on the windmills. I hope we do as good a job on the solar. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. All right, any additional? Yes.
Beth Hoyle from Harrisburg. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll be sharing information on solar energy that I have researched, and I'd be happy to share some of the sources with you if you're interested. First of all, the effects on the environment. Shading from the solar panels changes moisture and sunlight dynamics, impacting underlying soil temperature and microclimates. Panels incinerate insects and burn feathers of birds as they fly past. They alter ecosystems, change ground cover, and affect soil health. There's habitat destruction and fragmentation displacing wildlife. They emit heat at higher rates, which has unknown consequences on the environment. Heavy metals used in manufacturing leach into soil and groundwater, posing environmental and health risks. Rare earth minerals are used to make the panels. These are finite. These elements are not renewable. Putting solar panels on agricultural land is irresponsible. The field can never return to farmland due to the construction of the infrastructure, the concrete, the galvanized metal, and elements leaking from the panels and leaching into the ground. Some systems use water to cool turbines, using up to 650 gallons of water for every megawatt produced. And a system can generate a megawatt in a matter of hours, depending on the sun. So that's a lot of water. The visual impact is a concern, especially in rural and scenic areas. Glare from the panels produces reflections and flashes, causing a concern for drivers and nearby residents. There is noise pollution from the inverters due to the constant low humming sound. Another issue is economic effects. money is to be made in solar energy by green energy initiatives, $244 billion in 2020 alone. Lithium batteries to store captured energy costs approximately $1,000 per kilowatt hour, which is passed on to the consumer. This is intolerable compared to fossil fuel power. Governments provide subsidies to bring down the cost of solar power using taxpayer money. Connecting solar farms to the grid is costly, and property values decrease near solar farms. End-of-life issues. Disposal of solar panels is projected to reach up to 78 million tons by 2050. Many panels end up in landfills, increasing the risk of hazardous materials released. Recycling is costly, so installation companies often leave the outdated panels for the state, county, municipalities, and individuals to dispose of. The toxic waste will finally fall on the government, and to protect the environment, we'll use taxpayer money to recycle and dispose. The inefficiency and unreliability of solar power. It depends on sunlight, making it an intermittent energy source. Production ceases at night and fluctuates significantly during cloud cover and adverse weather. Solar panels are only able to convert 30 to 40% of solar energy. According to the laws of thermodynamics, solar panels will never achieve 100% efficiency. Temperature variations, snow and wind affect solar panels. Once the temperature rises above 87 degrees, each 1 degree rise decreases efficiency by 1%, and efficiency goes down 50% with cloud cover. Power output drops by 0.5% every year. In 30 years, the efficiency is down to 50 to 55%. And heavy winds, snow, and extreme conditions increase degradation. It may feel good to promote green energy, like you're doing something good for the environment. My research proves that false. Bill Gates, one of the biggest proponents of green energy, recently did a 180 turn in favor of fossil fuels. The lies are out and the money is gone. There is more damage and loss than benefits to solar energy. So I would ask that you please preserve our land, the environment, the animals, and the beauty of South Dakota, and not permit building of solar farms in Lincoln County. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may,
Yes, Scott.
I just want to share personal experience with solar panels.
Can you mention your name just? for the
Scott Montgomery Fairview. I just want to share personal experience with solar panels. I bid on this and I installed a dozen solar panels at my own place. And exactly those figures she quoted, how they deteriorate, and they'll never pay for themselves, and I did all the work myself. So I don't see how it's even possible, no matter how big a scale you build this thing, if you're paying somebody to do it, it will never pay for itself, ever. I did all the work myself, and I don't care if it lasts 100 years, it'll never pay for itself. I mean, the savings I have is minimal. And at some point, I'm gonna have to deal with those batteries. You know, each one of those batteries, got 16 batteries, each one of those batteries weighs about 120 pounds, and what am I gonna do with those? I mean, what am I gonna do with those solar panels? So, from personal experience, I wish I'd never seen them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else have any public comment to help us guide through this?
Michael Poppins, Lennox, and Sioux Falls, representing both. I wasn't at all going to talk about this topic, and I really don't have a for or against solar panels. What I am going to ask you to do is come up with whatever the rules are so that both the public and the entities that would try to propose know what field they're playing on. Many times we've kind of changed the rules after someone's come in to try to do something that's not good for the entity trying to apply for it, nor the public not knowing for sure. side note, which kind of ties into the previous thing, this situation may lead to a reason why you would maybe change some of the rules for building eligibilities. If you create an area, whether it's this CUP for solar panels, CUP for CAFO, maybe you create a reason to become more liberal on having those eligibilities move. Because there is an impact. Absolutely, there is an impact. Can we qualify it? No. But if we can allow a property owner, somebody that resides either there or just has the property, to still hold all of their value by moving it somewhere outside of that zone, whatever that would be. Same token, then maybe we have the opportunity to create ag zones. As everyone, I would imagine, has heard what's going on in Sioux Falls with Smithfield. There's going to be demand. We talk about trying to get people back to the farm. I grew up on a farrow to finish hog operation. It paid for a lot of land my dad bought over the years. So if people have an opportunity to try to bring kids back to the farm, it's back in livestock again. We have fluctuation in prices of grain, we have fluctuations in livestock, but if we diversify between the two, we kind of can ride through a lot of hills and valleys. And that really, I think, could still be a catalyst for trying to bring people back to the farm and have a financial impact to their livelihood. So there's a lot of pros and cons to a lot of things that you're dealing with tonight. And just remember, if you've forgotten, you're never going to please everybody. So, but thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to keep trying.
All right, any more public comment? All right, as we said, we'll bring this back next month and talk through it some more. Commissioners, what are your thoughts? I'll start with something here. So just a reminder that what we're looking here is land use is not, it's setbacks on something. This happens to be a solar farm. It could be setbacks on if it was a, cheese plant, or if it was something different. So we're looking at setbacks and whatnot. I do appreciate all the education and whatnot, but if someone's solar panels aren't efficient, that's their business model. That's not for us to decide as a planning commission. We're looking at setbacks, fences, roads. Yeah, definitely decibels, but that's definitely in there, and a lot of other things were brought up today. Good things, I think, to include in there.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, I would tend to agree. I mean, I like that we're starting this conversation. The last one we had was just kind of there. Now we're trying to find a place where it to go. I mean, that way everybody knows where they're at. I mean, everybody's looking for a way to make us energy independent. And I mean, I know they're subsidized, but so are fossil fuels. So, I mean, I'm not into splitting that hair or getting into that conversation tonight, but a lot of our energy is subsidized, so. But like I say, I'm not here for that political part, but I just think it'd be nice to have a spot to know where these can go, so everybody knows where they can be.
Mm-hmm.
I think the interesting thing that was brought up by a couple of the individuals that spoke tonight, I need to go back and look at the presentation that was provided last month or a few months ago based on the one that was proposed. Because I guess my recollection with that was I thought it was straight to the grid versus accessory batteries also on site. I know there's solar farms and then there's solar plus, right? So solar straight to the grid, solar plus means there's on-site batteries that do it. I cannot remember what that one was proposed. And again, we're not talking about that one specifically, but, it does bring up the additional hazards as talked about tonight, about whether or not it's the solar farm that contains the additional battery capacity to keep it pumping into the grid, but.
Yeah, I know there's battery storage farms and units, and a lot of times that's completely different. I mean, some of these do have batteries, but most are, all the ones I've been involved in are straight to the grid. They convert it, there are sounds through the inversion and all that stuff, and then goes directly to the grid. At night when it's dark, they don't produce, it's true, because it's dark,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I just don't remember how that one was proposed, but something to think about.
so maybe this is one I'll go back, keep rereading what's read here. We'll talk more next week, or, there's two good things I heard about was decibels, which I think is probably good in any farm, solar farm, whatnot. Another thing is we talk about set foot. Andrew talked about 1,000 feet rather than 500 feet, so things to talk about.
And I think what we're trying to do is create standardization, right? Because, I know Mr. Montgomery mentioned a moratorium. At this point, what we're trying to do is address the problem up front, right? We don't currently have any of these before us right now, and I don't know if there's any plan to come back after, we had done the one. But this is just a mechanism to make sure that we have standardization across the county, and as Commissioner Booth said, that everyone ensures that they have a level playing field going into planning for these, so I don't think they're going away, so I think we need to continue to work on this up front.
Then the other things, again, this is the base of if they can come here or not, then there's still the conditional use permit. If it's, if it's 10 acres, if it's, 300 acres, that would be up to us to decide yes or no on that.
And the public will get to comment.
Yeah, again, this is berms and fences and whatnot. If they want to put a berm around 100 acres, it's up to them. We can say yes or no to them coming.
Yeah.
What's everybody's thoughts on decommission? How that should it be handled up front?
Sorry, what was that?
Should the expectations for decommissioning probably be handled up front?
I think so, 100%.
Yeah, I do too.
A lot of the agreements I do there, it's a standard in there. How it is done a few different ways. You can ask for a deposit up front, but depends on the life of if it's something they're going to live for 100 years, that doesn't make sense. The other thing is, they have to do it when they're out as part of them. If they leave, then it goes on the landowner, which is part of the agreement they had with the solar farm. And if they don't pay for it, then it goes against their property taxes and eventually gets paid back. But I think a lot of it does depend on the scope. But yeah, I think a decommission should be part of it. Today, you think about here's more input, see what that thinks, but.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I really do like what Sarah brought up about notifying a wider radius of neighbors, and then talking about the fire equipment if a fire would break out in a solar farm.
I agree with that, yeah.
And we discussed at different times, so it's my understanding, I'm not an expert on this by any means, I'm not an expert hardly on anything. But the viability of these they have to be somewhat around a large substation, is that correct? They don't work real good if they're 10 miles away, or they gotta have something to handle the power.
Yeah, usually, the farther away they are, then the invest to get it there, so yeah. It's not generally be cheaper, more cost effective, be closer.
Yeah. Yeah, so the thought that just keeps going through my head, and I know just about everybody disagrees with me, but I'll say it again in case you've changed your mind, but I just wonder if, for starters, if we can't start with, where they could potentially go based on the areas that we have. Because I think it was Mr. Poppins and Mr. Boots, maybe somebody else said it, I think it's good to tell people where they can be. Or where we want them or where we don't want them, right? And currently, if right now, I would say that a certain size substation and that, I know when we've discussed that before, then the rebuttal is, well, they might want to build based on where the solar farm is, then they'll just make maybe a new substation. Well, now we gotta know a whole nother set of problems, maybe. I guess I'd just like to explore, I'm not saying it has to be this way, but explore that thought that, instead of saying all ag land and the whole entire county would fit this, why not we just start an area where they could potentially go based on the infrastructure that already exists, I don't know, that probably can't, maybe that's not even possible, maybe we don't even have infrastructure big enough for it to exist yet, I don't know, so maybe in order to, I guess those are some questions I have, like, do we have the infrastructure already in the county that could maintain a 160 acre solar farm? Or would that require then a whole bunch more infrastructure, and create other interesting discussions, I don't know. But those are just a few thoughts I have rattling around. The setback discussion is interesting. We have had those discussions that why wouldn't we handle them? Why would we require an animal ag business, or CAFO as they're referred to? Why would we make those more restrictive than a solar farm? That one's perplexing to me just a little bit too. If we were gonna put a 160 acre feedlot or 160 acres worth of hog building somewhere, but I don't know if there's a spot in the county that would have enough setback to do that.
Right.
And I realize it's personal preference, but I'd rather live next to 160 acres of cows than 160 acres of solar panels. And there's people that are probably the other way, but it doesn't make either way one more viable, one more right than the other. So yeah, the setback thing, I think that's for sure a deeper discussion. Personally, I think it's gonna be a long, hard, discussion, and I think it deserves that. I think it deserves a lot of thoughts and ideas, and I'm confident that we'll come up with a good solution in the end.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna conclude that, I took 5 pages of good notes tonight. I think there's some good comments that were made. I guess I would just request that the board would, direct us to kind of draft in some of these ideas that the people had tonight. Because I think it'd be good to look at on paper to see what it would look like. But, yeah, there was a lot of good items I think are reasonable that we could add to the draft that's there. To keep us moving along, I think that'd be a good, we can certainly draft some regulations in what we heard tonight, so. Again, continuing the big discussion, but, this has been I think it's been a good night to have this policy discussion that we've been having with good public input. It's been valuable, so appreciate it, so. But just, I guess I'll say, unless anybody holds back, I guess that's what we'll do as staff, is just kind of draft some of these items that were brought forward for public input, so.
Yeah, I think we can put them in like decibels and setback and whatnot.
Decommissioning.
Decommissioning, yes.
So Toby, one of the discussions we had one night about this was, treating it like our CAFO applications based on size, right? Like, if it was gonna be, I don't know if I have the answers to it, because I don't understand the verbiage, but a small 10-acre solar farm that's gonna put out so much, maybe there's no setbacks. And then if you got a 40-acre one that's gonna put out so much, just like, basically like we have a class A, B, C, D in the CAFO deal, could we look at, explore different sizes and then adjust setbacks and requirements based on that?
I mean, I think a lot of the comments we heard tonight are just the panel, so we want to make sure the panel setback, whether it's, 10 megawatts or 50 megawatts, it's still a panel that's going to be, we wouldn't want that any closer, you know what I'm saying? I guess I'm not clear on that. The setbacks.
I'm asking a question. Can we look at it that way?
Yeah, I mean, whatever the threshold would be, but I think what I'm hearing tonight, though, is they're saying any panel, regardless of megawatts, is the threshold that the concern they have with the leaking materials or just even the setback. They don't seem to want it closer to them than what, regardless of 500 of them or 10 of them.
5.
Yeah, 5 of them. Could be wrong, but I think that's what, they're just concerned about the setback from the actual structure.
I think if it was presented that way, that there's gonna be 20 solar panels next to you, or there's gonna be 2 million, I think that people would probably feel different about that, personally. At least I would.
So the question back is, what would we do then, I guess? You're saying increase the setback based on the number of them, or are you just saying that we wouldn't allow it within the ag district?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is you just increase the setback. I mean, if you're gonna have 20 million, I don't know, I'm throwing a stupid number out there, just to exaggerate to clarify, but if you're gonna have that, it's like a 10,000 head feedlot. I mean, just make the setback and the restrictions more than if you're gonna have a 1,000 head hog barn, you don't have any setbacks, but I don't know what those numbers are. But you see the concept behind it, the thought.
Yeah, I think the comments on the visual and the impacts of the materials, that's not gonna change if it's a 10 megawatt or a 500 megawatt.
I personally would think that the visual would be different across the road from my house if it was 20 acres or 200.
The sum of it, but the individual unit of it is still gonna be impactful, right?
No.
Okay.
I think that it would look different if it was on 20 acres or 200 or 2,000. I truly do. That's me. I'm not speaking for everybody else,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah,
me as a
yeah.
resident of Lincoln County.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a bigger impact, but I still think the little one has an impact too, though.
What's that?
I'd say the big one has a bigger impact, but the little one has an impact as well.
For sure, yeah. But they're different is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we just have to, how do you differentiate that? So that'd be the.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm asking is would it be worth exploring that we have a size discussion?
Yeah.
Because I think this is a hard one to say that we can write something that fits a 10-acre solar farm or a 1,000-acre solar farm. It's all gonna be the same. I think me personally would think that would be harder.
I mean, it'd still be
To fit it
different.
all into a box, because it becomes it'll become too restrictive for the 10-acre one, and it'll become potentially too easy for a 1,000-acre one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the setback. I mean, I think, like 1,000-foot setback, there's not too many spots that don't touch the house, right? I mean, that's the difference between like, when you're looking at regulations, like West River regulations compared to Lincoln County regulations, it's not apples and oranges because we have houses all over the place.
Yeah, but as we've talked about in many other things with setbacks, is what all the setback really does is it just gives rights to the people that are already there. Now, they can waiver out of that, they can sign off, they can sell their house, it isn't so restrictive that says never, it just puts the current person in a position that they can negotiate.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good discussion, the public should be involved in it, but what's the threshold? That's the hard part, what do you say is, if you go off of megawatts, like, Jerry can tell us what this different megawatt is compared to this, So that particular megawatt was gonna take, 40 acres over in Lennox, and that was only a 7 megawatt. But that was pretty intense, I mean, that was a lot of land, it's a lot of land coverage,
So maybe we look at, Eric, if you want to look at, see if there's anything around the area, or Toby, we can too, see if there's any language like that in the area for certain sizes. I do think we should have a solar person here, one or two to talk about. I mean, we have a lot of questions up here. I receive the power with my business. I don't produce it. I don't make it. I don't know all those questions, but if we had an expert here, he talk about batteries, decibels, what's the best place to have them, stuff like that. I mean, we help us learn. We'll have our public comment next week, but that doesn't mean that's the end of it. I mean, that doesn't mean we have to move something forward. We want to make sure we do it right, and that's just going to take a little time and education.
Yeah, so maybe the question is, what do you want me to look into on that part of it? So, yeah, we can look at different jurisdictions, how they treat intensity of the use, stuff like that, so.
Yeah, and I think, and thanks, Mr. Chair, because I think for me, just personally, I think that's one of the questions is like, we're talking about this, but we have, like if we were talking about hog buildings, I think most of us, or at least me or anybody in agriculture, know that, a 24.99 hog building, that's pretty common size, it's what kind of works, what most people want to do. We can talk in that as generalities, right? 2,000 head feed yard, whatever. I've got absolutely no idea what a efficient size solar farm looks like. Or the people that would potentially want to come to Lincoln County, I mean, what's that look like? Yeah, we had this 60-acre one. I mean, is that kind of the general size? Is that your equivalent to a 2,500 head hog building? Or is that a 5,000 head dairy, I don't know. What are the scale? What does it look like other places? I think you mentioned one night that there was 1,000-acre solar farm.
Yeah, PUC's approved in Moss River, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's big.
to come out of this, I think, Toby, will you add in there something about decommissioning?
Yep, and we'll add some other rest of the stuff, and I'll go through it next month, we'll just go through what the changes are. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, so that we keep moving forward with some of these ideas instead of them just repeating the same, we want these things, let's actually look at what the regulation would look like. Because we're still in a discovery stage, draft stage, we're not anywhere near getting to the point where we need to send it to the commissioners at this stage, so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
A
I
good
think-
process, I think this works, to do it this way, yeah,
100%.
yeah.
I think housing eligibilities, the board, we've had quite a few dealings with them over the years, so we're a lot more familiar. I think that will move forward a little bit faster. This one might take a little bit more education. Again, this is another impact to the ag community, and Lincoln County is still ag.
And I should disclaim again that, we're not policymakers, I'm not and you're not. Ultimately, the Board of Commissioners gets to decide what the regulations are. But it's good to give them some good idea to kind of where we study it a little bit more, kind of take some input on it and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, we want to put the best product forward.
Yeah, good start, yeah. All right, thank you.
All right, that, Lincoln County Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, I think that leaves adjournment.
I just want to say thank you for everybody that came and gave testimony.
Yes, very much.
Could I have one last word?
Yes, sir.
Thank you much for doing what you did today. I thank everybody and appreciated it very much.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed?